I'm Dawna Hetzler.
And I'm Sally Smith.
We, just like you, are bravely walking through the dark valleys of life in hopes of scaling joyful summits.
We believe that safe and trusted women are a force to be reckoned with. When we climb together, we can reach the mountaintop.
Many of our challenges come from feeling as if we are stuck while trying to ascend, hiding in crevices, waiting for storms to pass.
Might we suggest that you have a more proactive role in reaching the peaks of your own life?
Let's laugh at the untruths we were taught, from the common religious myths to the lies we believe about our situations and about ourselves.
It is our hope that our time together brings you solace from life's daily drudgery and a bit of lighthearted laughter.
This is a safe place where you are welcome, right where you are, even in your questions and doubts. So rise up, sister. It's time to conquer together.
And we certainly hope you'll say, "Now that's funny!"
Welcome to another episode of That's Funny. Now here's your host, Dawna Hetzler and Sally Smith.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of That's Funny. Oh my goodness, we have a great day in store for you. So get ready. And in the meantime, I want to introduce our guest. But before I do that, we've been talking about the whole and like debunking the myth of everything happens for a reason.
Now
That's
funny.
We usually do this in studio together, and Sally and I've been apart, and we've been doing this Zoom thing, and to synchronize the Now That's Funny has been kind of wonky, but I hope it makes you smile.
I was going to say it just makes it funnier.
It just makes it funnier, and then we can go, we're funny, right?
Right.
So today I am so thrilled to announce Cristina Durkin, who is, we call her Chris. She is a mama of four, and she is a businesswoman extraordinaire. She is one of my amazing neighbors in Florida. And the first time I met Chris, she was so vulnerable and real and just shared a story, and she barely knew me. And those of you who follow a lot know that we are all about empowering women and sharing our stories and, just going deep right away. So the minute I met her, I was like, oh, we're doing this show called That's Funny. Chris, would you be a part of it? And so lucky all of us that we get you today to hear your story. So this is exciting.
I remember when you told me you met her. She's like, I met this great lady.
Yes. So we're going to talk about everything happens for a reason. And Sally and I, as we've been trekking in this topic, it's more of, we know everything happens for a reason. God's got those reasons. Maybe there's more than one reason, but we can't stand when someone, just puts a lid on your story and says that as a response, as you're being vulnerable and sharing. So like, Chris, when you first met me and you're giving me all this like heartfelt story, and I just stopped you and said, if I did, oh, Chris, everything happens for a reason. How would you feel about that?
I would have said, you're right, it does, but there are no coincidences with God, as my Aunt Irene used to say.
Yes,
Love that.
yes, I love that.
Yep.
Do you want to just jump in and kind of share like your miracle that you saw? Because I think we need to put it into some context and how God worked in your life. So do you want to just share that?
Yes. So, it all started back on Memorial Day of 2021. And before then, there were a lot of signs. I knew something was wrong with my husband, always saying like, Jay, you got to go see a doctor. Something's not right. But most men,
Yes.
they don't want to go to the doctor. So
I'm not the only one in that.
right. And it was always, I'm fine, everything is fine. And you just kind of start just sitting back and just watching the decline. But then Memorial Day I gave him that weekend, I gave him an ultimatum because things were really bad. He was having a hard time, with certain things. And I said, if you don't go to the doctor, I am leaving you. And you are going to be here by yourself for the weekend, taking care of yourself. I will go to my mother's. And he was like, then go. So of course I couldn't leave him, but then like about an hour later, he did. He said, "We're gonna go," and we took him to urgent care. Took some tests, and the doctor said, "If you don't hear from me, that's great news, and if you do, we'll just figure out what it is." And on Memorial Day, we're coming out to get of a store, and I get a phone call, and it's the doctor, and the doctor says, "I'm trying to reach your husband and I just can't get in touch with him." And I said, "Oh, he's right here. Hold on," gets on the phone, and I just see tears falling from his eyes. And I knew it was bad.
You
Uh
knew before, didn't you, though? I mean, he was
no, no,
really.
never had a clue.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you sensed something that,
I mean, I sensed it, but
right,
I
but you
never
didn't know what.
knew what it was. I
Okay.
never knew anything. Um, and then what ended up happening was the doctor basically told him, "You guys have to get to the ER immediately, right now." And I was like, "What is going on?" And my husband said, "My kidneys." And we get to the hospital, and in that moment, they got him in the bed, and in that moment, the nurse comes up to me, the nurse practitioner, and she said, "If you didn't get him here in within the next day, he would have been dead." She says, "I don't know how this man has been walking around. He's got no function in either kidney."
What?
And I said, "Well, what do you mean? I just didn't, it just wasn't registering."
Yeah.
Yes.
So I said, so I says, "Well," I says, "Okay." I says, "Can you fill me in a little?" And she just kind of, let me know he was in acute renal failure.
Hmm.
And so we knew he had to start dialysis right away. He only had 2% function in one kidney, and that was it. So it was so and he was the only one who worked at the time. I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years at that time. Um and then there were things that just kept happening from that point on. We ended up losing our house. Well, he lost his job first, then we lost the house we were living in, and we knew we had to move because the landlords were in foreclosure. We were renting at the time. They were in foreclosure. Now, remember, we're in the peak of COVID. This is Memorial Day of
Oh,
2021.
okay.
So COVID had just happened that March.
Wow.
Was it 2021 COVID? No, 2020.
2020.
And
Yes.
so this was 2021. So it was like a year later, right?
Right.
And so we ended up, there were so many things. So we ended up losing the house. We knew we had to move. And once my husband, he was their golden child at his job. I mean, never had a complaint. He got them out of the red for the first time in 10 years. Like
Wow.
he was their go-to boy. And when they heard he was sick, so June, he was out pretty much all month. He got back in he went back to work the first week of August. As soon as he could, he tried. It was
Yeah.
a really big adjustment for him. Dialysis was a lot.
Yeah.
It really put a lot on him, a lot of wear and tear. It was just trying to get used to a whole new lifestyle.
Sure. And what are you
Um,
both thinking at this point? Like, I'm a good believer. How could this happen, Lord? Or were you just like, okay, or where's your head in all of this at this time?
I have to be honest. I really just remember saying, "Okay, God,
Mm,
there's a reason for all this. Like I know you will reveal it to me. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not scared
sure.
Right.
because I'm really scared right now. I don't, when you're in that moment of uncertainty, um your mind is just going so fast,
Yeah.
and your thoughts are so uncertain, and everything is, it's like a fog. It's
Yeah.
it's so surreal.
Right.
And um oh goodness.
Oh,
So,
so you're stepping out in faith, going, okay, I'm really scared right now. Oh
and
God.
I said, Lord, I'm gonna trust that you got this,
Okay.
and I prayed really hard, and I just knew that the Lord was gonna lead us in the right direction. Proverbs 3, verse 4, 4 to 6.
Yes.
Do not lean on your own understanding, and trust in the Lord with your whole heart, and he will lead you in the direction you should go.
I love that.
So that was really the verse I was standing on in that moment. And I did, and I trusted. And then a couple months later, they ended up firing my husband.
Mm,
And the story that they gave to, terminate him was insane,
wow.
saying that, he brought a gun to work and and put these two people, and we ended up and that's because they had nothing to use against him, because there were never any
Oh,
complaints.
so they're making up
They
stuff.
had to come up with a story to why, and then we found out from the two witnesses who worked for my husband, because my husband was a superintendent, and those two men ended up calling us a couple weeks later, and they were crying, and they said, we are so sorry, but they dragged us into the office and told us, this is what you saw and this is what you heard, and that is it.
Wow.
And
Oh,
So you're
basically,
enveloped in these lies around you. Now you've got this diagnosis. Oh my gosh, like all this stuff's going on. How did you get from where you were at to here? And then kind of what's like that journey too?
so and once he was terminated, it was like, okay, Jay, I've been wanting to move to Florida for a long time. We knew that, but we just never could. My husband did very well up there, and he was like, I'll never do as well in Florida. But anyway, when he got fired, I ended up getting a phone call from an apartment complex in Florida, and they were like, um, we just want to know if you guys are still interested. We had a 3 bedroom, 2 bath apartment open up, and we would love to have you guys, move down. You've been approved. If you're interested, we would like to offer you the apartment. And I was so like taken back, and I'm going, oh my God, what
Maybe this is a
apartment?
reminder from God, like you got to get to Florida. You got to get to Florida.
Right. Like, what apartment is this? So we ended up taking the apartment. We come down, blindly take the apartment. We come down, and there were so many things that happened in between, but long story short, so we get here, and there were so many nights my husband almost died 4 times.
oh,
Wow.
We went through a lot that first year here. And my kids, I had at the time, she was 12, I want to say 11. I had 11, not, no, 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 11, 7, 5, and 3, or it was 4, 6, no, I'm sorry, 4, 6, 8, and 11. That's
oh,
how
Oh
it
my
went.
gosh. Wow.
So, yes, because my baby boy had just turned 4 when we moved. So we get here, and my oldest daughter was my saving grace. I mean, without her, because we had no family here.
Mhm.
So we were in and out of the hospital, ERs, crazy time. But so then we moved down here because we thought we had a donor here. And the donor was a friend of ours from high school who happened to live in Cape Coral.
Oh,
Yes. So that's what made us come to Cape Coral.
okay.
And the apartment was in Cape Coral. So I guess I was kind of signing up for apartments or whatever.
Yeah.
But so we get down, and then come to find out, the donor ended up, we couldn't use him because he ended up being borderline high blood pressure. So
Okay.
the doctor was like, listen, I hate to break the news to you, but you guys are going to have to look for a new donor. And it was so devastating, and in that moment, you just kind of throw the armor of God on,
Yeah.
and now you're just completely fervently praying for a kidney to come as fast as it can, because when you're on dialysis, time is of the essence.
Yes.
Because the wear and tear, most dialysis patients, if they don't find a kidney, within 7 years, there's a good possibility your body can't take no more,
Oh,
and it just kind of gives out, because the wear and tear from the dialysis is way too much on the body, and the
oh,
body just can't handle all that.
okay.
So, I really started praying, even more than before. And, and I trusted. And the whole time it was hard. But so he ended up we ended up, so, we knew we had to go through some trials. He had to get cleared to get on the list. So he had to do a few things. So now that was in February when we found out. So let's fast forward to August.
Okay.
And
And are you going to talk about the dream too?
yes.
Okay, because I'm like, oh, we're already in a little bit, so we're kind of like
From
maybe
here it
five
gets really
minutes
quick.
or
So
so.
August, so August 4th, he tells me he wants to get the fistula put on in his arm. And that's a permanent port for dialysis. So I said, I really don't think you should do that. I think you really need to pray on this. You're forgetting the God we serve. He's a mighty God. He can do all things. He said no, and I said, I said, I really think you have to do this, because I feel it in my heart. Something is telling me you're going to have a kidney in 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow.
And he said, yeah, I know, Chris. I know God can do all things, and he was mocking me a bit, and I understood it. He
Sure,
was all
right.
over the place. And then finally, he got the fistula put in, and then it got infected. That didn't get infected. When they took the temporary port, that's what got infected. He ended up with sepsis and 107.5 fever, and he made it through that. And then the last thing he had to do was get cleared for his dental, and he got cleared. And September 4th, he was cleared and active on the list for a kidney September 4th. From there, September 4th, we go to September 13th. And now, September 13th, I wake up in the middle of the night from this dream. And it was a beautiful dream. And I knew right away it was a dream from God. It was my first dream ever from God. And I was just so excited that I finally got my dream from God.
I
And
love
it
it.
was it was this man standing at the door, and he's helping me prepare a table with this beautiful food, like food and colors I've never seen before in my life. So he was greeting people, and I wake up from the dream. I tell my husband and my mother in the morning, I'm like, you got to listen to the stream. I says, all I know is don't ask me any questions. I'm just going to tell you. I says, the Lord will reveal it to me. And when he does, I will tell you what the dream is about. But it does remind me of Psalms 23. I am preparing a table before your enemies. So I said, okay. So my mom's like, okay, we go from there. And am I almost out of time? I'm sorry.
No,
So,
I clicked on something because it says, we have 10 minutes max, and then
oh,
it
we're going to
said
be done before
upgrade
then.
now. And I was like, sorry,
Okay.
go on.
So,
But I do want to get to our like reasons why. So
we're
yeah,
gonna get there.
give me
So
something.
we
Okay.
end up. So that dream happens, and then 3 days later, my husband calls me and tells me there's a kidney at the hospital. So
Oh,
now I'm like, oh my God. So we get up there. He gets transplanted on September 16th at 1:15 in the morning.
uh-huh.
And then And just so you know, that is 7.5 weeks from when I
Oh
told
my
him,
gosh.
That
do
you
not put that fistula in your arm because I do believe you're going to have a kidney within 6 to 8 weeks. And
Yes.
it was 7.5 weeks to be exact. And only 2 weeks was he on the kidney list.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my
I've
goodness.
got
Talk, ab-
goosebumps.
I know.
talk about a real miracle right before your eyes. And
Yes.
so, and then my mother-in-law ended up coming in, and I realized right then and there what God was doing.
Mm.
And I knew, so she came in and she's a kidney coordinator. So the best thing for her was you stay up at the hospital with him and I will go home with the kids. And when he's ready to come home, because we knew he was only going to be in there for about a week. And when you come
Yes.
home, and we knew then and there, so that Sunday after Jay was transplanted, we're on our way to church, and the Lord was tugging on me to go to this church that we've never been to before, ever. So as I'm passing it, the kids were kicking and screaming. They didn't want to go to that church. I said, we have to go here. The Lord wants to tell me something. We
Yes.
go inside, and the pastor preaches on Psalms 23. I'm preparing a table before your enemies.
What? Oh my God.
So it was, the evidence was there.
Yes.
Jesus's presence was, I was surrounded. And I knew then, right then and there, that he heard my prayers
Yes.
and he answered. And I always worried that I didn't know if I was hearing him. Like
Right.
you always question,
Question it.
am
Yeah.
I really hearing him, or or is it my own selfish desires that I'm following just because I wanted to be back in Florida?
Right.
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 But really everything started falling into place. We needed to be here. The kidney was here. The
Yes.
kidney that was him. And in my dream, or after my dream, I always, when I woke up from the dream, in the middle of the night, remember, I said, Lord, I'm going to confess this with my lips because your word says to do that. And I'm just going to tell you. And my exact prayer was, dear God, I don't want some young person to die for my husband to get the best kidney. But what I want is for him to get the most perfectly matched kidney that it's unbelievable to people.
Right.
It's like, and when he got transplanted, the nurse did say, 25 years I've been doing this and I've only heard of this. I've never seen it in person, but
Oh my God.
your husband got what they call a 6 antigen, 0 mismatch kidney, which means it was his DNA twin from another mother.
No way.
Wow.
There wasn't any mismatch in the blood DNA between the two.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
And it was pretty crazy.
So I want to just jump in and say, well, I want to kind of recap this. Like, one, I heard you say, when you hear from God, trust your knowing that you know his inner voice, because so many of us second guess that voice and go, okay, was that my voice wanting to get to Florida? I was tired of being, on the East Coast. Trust God's voice. He will move you. He'll get you there. He will prepare the table for you. He will make a perfectly matched kidney that's meant just for your husband, Jay. And what are the other reasons that you can think of? I mean, is there anything?
We weren't talking to his mother, so I knew in that moment after the church service, I called my mother up and I was crying, bawling my eyes out, and I said, he's preparing the table for me and my mother-in-law.
Right.
And my husband came home 2 days before Hurricane Ian hit Cape Coral and devastated Cape Coral. And the hospital couldn't make it. They couldn't be more adamant about him getting to Tampa, which is 2 hours away,
Yes.
2 days a week for testing to make sure that the kidney wasn't going to reject.
Right.
He needed to eat properly. He had to be in clean areas. Like, it was very, very serious conditions.
And you couldn't get there, right?
We couldn't get there for 3 weeks.
So
We
even
had
God is
no,
telling you, like, I can care for you even when you
Right.
don't think I can.
yep, he really provided everything. I mean, we came down here with, it took so much money just to move down here. So once we moved down here and took everything out of our savings and everything, I mean, we were in bad shape financially
Yeah.
after that. And, we needed a lot of help, but God restored everything. I mean, and that story in the Bible when he tells Abraham, sell everything and go,
Yeah.
to eat, and this is where I want you to be, and I will restore you. And let me tell you something, we did that. We sold everything and we came down here and he restored everything. And at that time, because of COVID and politics, me and him and his mother and sisters, his mother and sisters completely abandoned us in that time because we would not get vaccinated.
And you're restored now in that relationship, right?
And that was the restoration. So
Uh,
that was the table he was preparing, that because we were stuck, me and his mother were stuck in that apartment for 13 days with no power,
God, tell
no
us restore this.
no power, no water, no food, and it was like we had a lot to talk about.
Oh, I love that. And we are about out of time.
I
Sally,
know. I'm so sorry.
no, we need to have you back on at
I
some
know.
point.
I think
I
we really
hope
need to have her back.
Yes, we need to have you back on because we always say our show should be longer, but everybody kind of likes the, conciseness of it too. But if you are out there and you are just in this terrible time of, darkness and not knowing, like, God, what are you up to? I hope Chris's story can inspire you and you can see that God was making this big table for her, and in
Mhm.
that table was healing. At that table was her mother-in-law's restoration. It was financial healing. It was all the stuff that he was bringing to this table. So, as we're going out, what's that scripture then in Psalms, or that I prepare a table before
Oh,
you?
I
Psalm
am
23?
preparing it. I am preparing a table before your enemies. And at
Okay.
that moment, my enemy was my mother-in-law.
Oh,
And even more, it was my husband's health. It was everything. There was so
yes.
many things that were my enemy at that moment.
Yep.
But
Well, we're
the
going to have
power of
to have you
prayer is
back because
amazing.
we're going to cut off really soon. Sally, do you want to take us back? Thank you so much, Chris, for being vulnerable, for sharing that. Sally, do you want to take us out?
Yes, just thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you for everyone for trekking along with us. Thank you for still sticking with us through the Zoom. And remember, don't believe that myth or lie that everything happens for a reason. Now
And
that's
that's
funny.
funny.
Funny. Bye, everybody.
From the heavens high above, I feel the touch of his laughter and love. In every moment, tear and smile, God's humor is heard, every step, every mile. Keep walking, dear sister. You've got this.